Hi, I'm Curious Cass, and this is Curiosity Junkie. Today, the conversation continues with Kelli as she shares her experience with anaphylactic shock and how that changed her relationship with food and the people she surrounds herself with. Please welcome Kelli Burton-Wartelle back to the podcast.
I think the tipping point for me when my allergy really just tipped my life upside down and made it a fear for me and made it something that I was thinking about every second of every single day, and I still struggle with that now, is when I actually had a really bad allergic reaction and I had to go to the hospital. So I was me and my brother went to the same college town for university. We were celebrating his graduation. I was over at his apartment. He had this trail mix that was like, no peanuts, made in a peanut-free facility. And he's like, Kelli, you can have some. We were like, yes. And so I had some and I was like, delicious. And I had a little bit more and I was like, oh yeah, let's go over to our family friend's house and let's go have some pizza. So we get in the car, and as a person with allergies, anybody else who has allergies, you'll know what I'm talking about here, where there are just things that you start to feel aren't quite right.
Yeah.
You're like, is my tongue itchy right now? I can't really tell. Am I hallucinating this because I just tried something new and I'm freaking myself out and it's a mental game? Or is my tongue actually itchy? And you're like, my lips. You're like, is that swollen? Or again, am I making this happen with my mind because I'm scared? Is this really a reaction or am I blowing something up in my head? So I'm in the car and those little things start to happen. And then 100% for sure it's a reaction when you've got the bumps and you start to feel like tingles in your throat, which means it's closing up.
Right.
And I remember being like, we have to go to the hospital. And my dad was in the back and my brother's driving and they're like, what? And I'm like, we have to go to the hospital. I don't know if that had peanuts or what, but we've got to go. I am not okay. I am having a severe reaction. And you're sitting in the car and you're trying to be calm because you don't know how far away the hospital is. You don't know. I hadn't really thought about it at that point in my life. It wasn't practice for me to say, okay, how close can I live to a hospital? So I'm in the car, sitting there, my head kind of back and just trying to meditatively breathe and not freak out. I remember I had my EpiPen, but it's one of those things where, I can't tell anybody how to use their EpiPen, but for me, I didn't want to use it unless I was severely in danger, no chance of getting to a hospital in time, because it's a giant shot of adrenaline and that can have side effects as well. So we get to the hospital. I remember I am sprinting through the hospital, running around looking for where the intake is because they're not always super clear, where to drop off. At that point in time, you're just in survival mode and you're not really thinking about much except where's the intake? Where's the intake? Where's the intake?
I need help.
And we get there and I remember too, I don't know what it's like to work at a hospital. I'm sure it is so difficult, but I remember getting there and my dad is like, she's having a severe allergic reaction. She needs immediate help right now. She ate one of her allergens. She is going to die. She needs help. And the person at the desk is just like, wow, okay, and they were like, well, sit down. And he's like, no, you don't understand. She should be on a stretcher. And this doctor comes forward and they get me on a stretcher and they put me back in this room. And then from there on out, I just remember blacking in and out and sort of feeling just really hazy.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the doctor who had probably worked so many hours before and was tired. It was trying to do quick math to figure out my height and my weight and what Benadryl and IV they should set me up. And my dad, who's very quick at math, was doing the math for him because quicker at it than the doctor was.
Right.
So
You're like,
I
thanks, Dad.
remember, yeah, I was like, oh, thank you. I remember that happening, and I never had a severe reaction before, and I haven't had one since. And I remember that my hand was just like very, very tight. And I later recognized that as I was having a seizure in my hand and my body was seizing, because I mean, no matter how hard you try to clench your fist right now, I promise you, you will not get it as tight as it was in that moment. It was just like rigor mortis tight,
Locked up, right?
Locked up, seizing. So I remember that happening and being like, I can't open my hand, and saying that. And then I remember them asking me where the pain was, and I was telling them, I can't breathe, like my mouth is swollen. And I remember telling them that I was having severe cramps in my stomach. So because I had ingested my allergen, my stomach was reacting as well, and was like, just really, really tight again, almost like that seizure feeling in your stomach. And then I remember they got me a lot of Benadryl. They were monitoring me very closely, deciding if they wanted to do a shot of epinephrine or a half a shot or something like that. They decided not to. I was under control. I was going to be fine. I think I fell asleep for a little bit, and I remember waking up, and my dad and my brother were just like staring at me. And I think my brother felt so guilty because he had given me this trail mix, that we knew was the catalyst.
Yes.
So yes, this is where it comes in. It's peanut free. And, my dad, I'm his daughter, and he's like, oh my gosh, I just want you to be okay. And I remember them being like, do you know what you look like right now? And I was like, no. And they gave me a mirror, and it was like I had monster movie makeup on, because I was purple. I was like the color of your top if you're watching this recording, like a plum purple and red splotchy. And my face was just swollen to almost like twice its size. And I couldn't even recognize myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what that makes me think of? Is that Will Smith movie where he eats the shellfish and all of a sudden he's completely distorted. Okay, so very similar.
It's just like in Switch. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Very similar to that. They did a pretty good job with that, except he would need to go to the hospital.
Absolutely. Right. You're like, I'm sorry, that Benadryl's not going to work.
Not just a little cup, you got to have an IV of that to stop a bad reaction. But I remember that happening. And then I remember getting released, and I remember thinking to myself, we checked through that package, and it was like, no peanuts. And I was like, okay, what that means is that I'm not just allergic to peanuts, I'm allergic severely to something else that I ate. And that's a new level of terrifying.
Absolutely.
You think you've got it all figured out. You think you have it under control, air quotes. You think you know what to avoid, but then you find out, holy moly, how could I have been so wrong? I went and got allergy tested a few weeks later. And at this point, I was in charge of my own medical records, and I was, 20 years old. Mm-hmm. And I remember the doctor saying, oh no, it's not peanut. It's peanuts. It is cashews. It is pistachios. Those will send you into anaphylactic shock if you eat them. Avoid them at all costs. It is a small allergy to apples, pork, severe allergy to dogs, mild allergy to cats, extreme allergy to dust mites. And just me, I remember sitting there and being like, oh man, you gotta be kidding me. That's a lot of things to keep track of. And I think something else people don't really know about the experience of going into anaphylactic shock is the weeks, months, and years after that. and how your body is physically affected, let alone your emotional well-being. But
right.
physically, all of those things that I could eat before, even breads, like you'll notice a lot of breads are actually produced in facilities that have tree nuts. Well, cashews and pistachios are tree nuts. So I would, make a sandwich and my tongue would start to itch. All of these things that had never affected me before because, like you said, they were so mild, or it was such a small trace that it didn't really, my body was strong enough to handle it. Well, your body's immune system just plummets to rock bottom when you go into anaphylactic shock because you're trying to recover. It's like when somebody has a heart attack, your body is so weak after you have a heart attack. It takes all of your energy to just try to recover.
Yes.
And you're much more sensitive to, the things that would perhaps induce a heart attack. You're much more sensitive to the allergens that would produce anaphylactic shock. So I couldn't eat bread. I couldn't eat apples. I remember my partner at the time bringing me an apple to work and I ate it and I broke out in hives. And I was like, well, great. No more apples.
What can I eat?
Exactly. I'm not joking you. It was for probably 3 months after anaphylactic shock. I was on a diet of, I don't even remember. It was essentially nothing. Like I was struggling to eat. I was struggling to find things that I could eat. It was like oats and things and like berries,
Yeah. Pasta. Didn't you eat a lot of pasta?
Oats, berries, pasta. Yeah, I did eat a lot of
eat.
Good memory. Yes. I ate a lot of that because I could eat it. There was nothing dangerous in there for me. So that was really difficult. If 3 months of your entire life flipped upside down, all of these things that you used to be able to eat, you can't eat them anymore. I was fearful, like genuine fear and panic and anxiety when I would have to try a new food. You're thinking, oh my God, is this one gonna make my mouth itch like all the others? Is this one, can I eat it yet?
Right. Is everybody ready for a trip to the hospital just in case?
Exactly. And as part of that, it's probably part of my personality as well, but I didn't want to I didn't want to feel like a burden. I remember that being the first time after I had that anaphylactic shock and all of the months and years after that, it was from then on that I felt like I was a burden to everybody around me. My roommate liked to eat Chick-fil-A and I was a burden because she needed to wipe down the TV remote after she ate and wipe down our apartment after she ate it. And I was a burden because my friends wanted to go to the Chinese restaurant, but we couldn't go there because I can't eat there. Or we can go there, but I have to eat somewhere before and just sit there and hang out while they eat. I'm a burden because my partner can't eat Chick-fil-A anymore unless we don't see each other for a few days after.
Right.
Just all of those little things. And, I loved like communal eating and I love to have a sense of community. But after that point, it was just such a fear about, I don't know what people are adding as ingredients. I don't know what they're cooking with, what utensils they're using, where they've been, if they wash their hands, just all of these things start to run through your head that make it so when somebody offers you to have dinner with them, you have to say no.
Yeah.
Or I had to say no. And I had to go into this big, long explanation about how I had just been through anaphylactic shock and how I had just gone to the hospital and how I was purple and blue and all welted and,
You're like, okay, so here's a list of what I can't have or even come in contact with. Can you guarantee me and sign this document that you won't be using it?
Exactly. That is really...
Yeah.
That is what it's like.
Holy smokes. What a shift, because you are very social.
Yes, I'm very social. I'm a very independent person. I love people and love making community. And it was like that all had to come to a crashing halt because my world was flipped upside down.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about this happens. You're college, like into college,
Yeah.
kind of your last couple of years. And then dating. Like, let's talk a little bit about that. Once you know you have extreme allergies, and some things you may not even really be aware of until you try them. And
Mm-hmm.
you were in Seattle when you connected with Max, is what I kind of go to. And the one memory I have is I think I was there and we were picking him up at the airport, or he was coming in here. You guys had come here, and he gets off the plane and he kisses you on your
Yes,
forehead.
Arizona.
And within seconds, you get this welt on your forehead. And you were like, did you eat peanuts? And he was like, no, I ate whatever, but it was like 6 hours ago. And it was still affecting you. And thank God he kissed you on your head and not your mouth in that moment. But you were still kind of early, I think, in your relationship. And you were like, see, I told you.
Yes, that aspect made the beginning of my relationship very difficult. So you mentioned Max, that's my husband now. What you talk about, so he had eaten some kind of energy bar or something on the plane ride over, which is an 8-hour plane ride.
Right.
He had eaten some kind of energy bar at the start of that journey that had cashews, I believe, in it. That was one of my allergens I was aware of. And we had I had been told by the doctors that it was a 4-hour period. So if somebody, your partner that you're dating, if they eat something within 4 hours of, kissing you or whatever, then you're kind of in the danger zone and you're probably going to swell up because of that. It's not going to be deadly, but it is going to be annoying, because it's annoying when your lips are all swollen up and they hurt and they itch and you don't know if it's going to get worse or not. It's not as much now because we've been together 3-4 years and we've lived together, and he's a very open and understanding person. But at the start of the relationship, probably for the first year and a half or so, again, it was that sense of, oh my gosh, I'm a burden. This person has to give up eating these foods, because if we're going to live together, they can't be in their diet. They have to eat very similar to how I eat, with a few exceptions, maybe, that they can eat granola bars that are processed in a plant, where I can't eat granola bars that are processed in a plant with my allergens. So they still have those privileges, but no more Thai food, no more like Asian fusion, no more African food, because all of those, you typically use a lot of my allergens. Yes, so I remember feeling like a burden, and I also remember that causing a big tension in the relationship, because at the start of any relationship, you're trying to build a lot of trust.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to say, I'm going to be here for you no matter what. I care about you. You're a priority. And to me, it kind of became this thing in my head where it was a choice. Like, you're choosing not to be attentive to my allergies, so you must not care about me the way you say you do. Why? You can easily tell that story and get to that place, rather than, oh my gosh, I just didn't realize that you were that allergic. And I'm so sorry, and it won't happen again. It becomes this story of, okay, I'm already a burden. Ugh, I'm such a waste for this thing. They could be with somebody who's not allergic, and they could not have to limit their life like I do. I should just find somebody else with severe allergies. And, he obviously doesn't care about me the way he says he does, because he isn't taking precautions seriously,
Right.
And I can laugh about this now, because I remember conversations again at that like 1.5 year point where I said, I'm already in charge of what I'm eating. I can't be in charge of what you're eating too. I can't constantly have that worry in my mind. I need to be able to trust you, and you need to take charge of that. And I remember that being a big tipping point, right? Because it was almost like, at first, well, it's my allergen. I should take on all of the heavy lifting for it.
Right.
But it's just not possible, you know?
No. And you can't control what other people do. So you have to trust that they really understand and get it, and that they're willing to take that on. So yes, kudos to Max for stepping up and being open and willing. I mean, obviously he loves you, that he's willing to say, you're important to me, and if we need to eliminate these foods, then we'll eliminate them. And it is something, if you don't have extreme allergies, you never think of all the little things. Like I remember when you came here and I'm using my little scrubber brush, washing stuff, and you're like, so have you ever used that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't even think about like what things have been exposed to, because it's not in your daily routine. And those are moments when I go, I can't even imagine living that life where you're like on high alert to anything and everything that comes into your world. You really have to pay attention.
Yeah. And you saying that, it just brings up some emotions for me. And I started going to therapy a few years ago, and I remember she asked me to tell her about my allergens and my anxiety and my trust issues with that. And I remember telling her, and for the first time ever, she said to me, she was the only person who had ever said this to me in my life, that must be so exhausting.
Mm. Oh,
I was
just write down.
Yeah. I was bawling. It makes me tear up right now, because
makes me tear up too. I'm like, oh my God.
That's, that was the first person who had ever acknowledged that must just be so exhausting to always, and I mean always, be on high alert.
Yeah.
Always. Like right now, even during this call, I'm somewhere in the back of my brain thinking, okay, yeah, that toast I ate, that was good, right? And that hummus that I ate, that was not chickpea hummus, that was white bean hummus, right? And that tea that I'm having, wait, is that a bump on my lip? Is that something strange? It feels like it's like it's an allergy, but no, it's okay. It's just in my head,
No one lives like that. I mean,
only people
on average, people do not live that way. And so being able to even identify or relate to it, you can't even fathom having to have those thoughts 24/7. Am I going to be okay? Is something going to hurt me today? Yeah, I'm thinking your anxiety level.
Yeah, it is. And, as I exited school and I started going to the workplace, everybody who has allergies, let me just say, you are protected. You have rights in your workplace. And if your workplace is providing food, they are legally required to provide food for you and do the checking for you to make sure that it is safe for you. That's what I have to say about that, because when I entered into the workplace, I did not know that I was a protected person. Anybody with severe allergies is protected under the law.
That's fantastic. And I'm glad you shared that. Yeah.
It is like making sure that you have a wheelchair ramp.
Yeah.
It is along the same lines. And I think that brings up something, like just in the workplace, I remember teaching a lot of people about allergies because, like you said, the majority of people that I interact with have never had an allergic reaction, have never known somebody that has had an allergic reaction. They're like, I get seasonal allergies, which yes, I feel for you, but it is just not the same ballgame at all.
Right. You're like,
it's not the same at all. Yeah, that's like, I was a junior varsity basketball athlete and I'm in the Olympics or whatever, it's like, right. Totally different.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But yeah, I remember educating, and I remember when we finally I was working at a small nonprofit, and we finally had an HR person join the team, and they were like, is anybody doing anything for you? I said, no, what are you talking about? And they're like, you indicated you have these allergies. Are they providing food for you? Are they making sure that nobody sits at your desk area and has snacks at your desk area with your allergens? And I was like, no, no one's doing that.
No one cares. Right.
No, nobody's doing that. And they should be. And I also began to meet people too, as I moved into a bigger city, who either did not acknowledge that allergies were a real thing. There are people out there who believe that your allergies are all in your head and you're just making them up and you're just making it worse for yourself. Undoubtedly, there's a psychological element to your allergies, and you can indeed make them worse for yourself by creating anxiety and stress hormones. But I mean, hello, I was, like you said, 2-3-year-old touched my eye with some peanut butter and it swelled up. I don't think I was psychologically creating that allergy. As I was working through my relationship with my now husband, and I was going to therapy, and I was having people start to acknowledge, oh my gosh, that must be so exhausting every day. And oh my gosh, you don't need to take on all that weight. I can take on some of that weight, because that's what a marriage is about. And I found this awesome support group through Facebook. It was the most authentic group, mostly women, who were all people who either were mothers or close to somebody who had severe food allergies, or they had severe food allergies themselves. And it was there that I could air some grievances that I had of, oh my gosh, my husband came to visit me now. My partner came to visit me for the first time in 3 months, and he ate this granola bar, and I'm like so mad about it, because you become angry or sad or whatever your severe emotional response is to that annoyance in your life. Yeah. And you can share it with people and they understand. They're not telling you, well, just calm down. They're telling you, I completely understand. You're totally in the right to be angry. You have to deal with this every day. Can't they just deal with it for one day?
Right. Yeah. It's validation that it's not just you being bothersome. It's not. Yeah. And let's talk about that a little bit. Like, are you at a point where you really are comfortable knowing you're not a burden? Because I think that would be a huge mental hurdle to come to, where you go, I'm not a burden. This is just who I am. These are things I have to deal with, and the people around me have to learn to acknowledge and accept. It doesn't mean I'm a burden. Have you gotten to that?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I accept my body for what it is. I understand that I cannot change my allergies, and that I just, that can't stop me from living the life that I want to live. It may impede some things that I want to do, or it may have to make me think about setting different goals for myself, but I accept that. And at the same time, I personally, and I would imagine many people with allergies that are severe food allergies,
yeah,
you never, I don't know, I personally have never gotten to the point where I could see feeling, completely comfortable, no burden, no anxiety about it. I just don't think it's possible, because it's a threat to your life, right? Yeah. So there's always going to be that anxiety there. And then I've become a lot better at speaking up for what I need. So I've become a lot better at telling my roommates, hey, this is my sponge and it's over here. Do not use it on your things. And they're awesome about that. I realize that, like you said, most of the people that I invite into my life and that I welcome into my life really care about me, and are willing to do something that might be, it might take them an extra minute of their life, because they understand that it is constantly a weight on my shoulders. And if they can take a little spoonful of that off and handle it, then they do. And they truly care about me. I've become a lot better at recognizing when I had the capacity to teach somebody about allergies, and when I want to get into it, and when it's best for myself to put myself at priority and just not engage and ask one of my friends or my partner to do the explaining.
Mm-hmm.
Like with the Alibabas, or when we go to restaurants, I'm like, Max, can you just handle it for me, please? I'm so exhausted already. Can you please?
Right.
Can you do it for me, bud?
Yes. And I think that's wonderful that you have found somebody that is totally okay with taking that on and wants to help you remove some of that burden, because that's a lot every day. What advice would you have for young people?
Oh man, I think for really young people, it makes me think. I do work with a child who has asthma and has to carry an EpiPen for a severe allergy, and like, we're buds,
Right, you're like, I get it, dude. Right.
I think, and this probably goes for a bit of parents as well, for young children, is, one, make sure you get a clear diagnosis, and make sure that your child is in charge of that information. So make sure that they have full information about what their allergens are. Try to, continue to empower them and communicate that, like, yes, this is going to be a difficult part of your life, but also you don't have to do it alone. You're not doing it alone. As the parent, you don't have to have your kid read all the labels. You can read the labels in the grocery store for your child and make sure that your house is stacked with, foods that they can eat and that they don't have to worry about. Or if you have multiple children, some with allergies, some without, have, a special shelf or something that is dedicated to their allergens, and I asked that specifically to be the other way around. So some people would think, oh, I'm going to have allergen-free shelf, but that is sort of inherently isolating for somebody who already feels like they're navigating the world a bit alone, and nobody really understands them, to say, well, you have your own special shelf. It's just another indicator that, I'm different. Oh, I don't get to have everything that everybody else has. Whereas if you switch that narrative a bit and you say, oh, okay, anything that has, peanuts, cashews, and pistachios, it's going in this little area and it's confined to this little space. You're just asking people who get to live a more regular, less anxious lifestyle in terms of food and what they ingest, to take on that little burden. They're taking that little spoonful of weight off of that child who already feels different. Yeah, just those little things that you don't necessarily think about, how somebody who already feels so different and already has so much anxiety on them for their allergen, that to say, oh, you get to hang out in this little corner. It's just like at the cafeteria when, school started saying, oh my gosh, kids have severe allergens. We need to separate them.
Yes, I remember that. I was like, no, she's sitting at the other table. She's sitting here. Yes.
It's exclusive, and it's very hard as a child, where if I would urge, if you're a school administrator or your parent, to advocate that, well, my child already has to manage what they're eating, and they already carry so much of that weight. Why don't you ask the kids who want to bring peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to all sit at their own table? And they can all sit together.
Right. If you want peanut butter and jelly, this is the table. Right.
Exactly.
Why does that have to be weird? Yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly. But that brings up whole other things of, you can have, and this was something, I never was bullied as a kid, but I think that's why I started just to exclude myself from things and not say anything at all, because then the kids come to you and say, oh, and I hear this in my school sometimes too, is like, oh, well, no, we can't have that because Kelli.
Yes.
Oh, well, no, we don't get to have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because Kelly's allergic. So, so
yeah.
I would say, as the parent, of your child, no matter what schooling system they're in, to really advocate that you meet with the teacher before, that they know inclusive strategies that they can use, that it should never be a thing that is singled out. Oh, Kelli has this allergy, so stay away from her if you have these things. And it should always be like a positive language, it's like that allergen should always try to be stated in a positive way, not in a deficit to the classroom or to the workspace or anything like that. It's on somebody else if they're not educated about your allergen, for the teacher or the boss or that person to educate themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
So that would be
like
for
that.
children and parents. And also I would suggest too, if you're a partner of somebody with severe allergies and you don't have them, or a parent and you don't quite understand that experience, find one of those support groups and join it and sit in the background and ask questions and listen in and just try to put yourself in their shoes for a moment and really ask your child or ask your employee or your friend or your partner, what is it really like for you? And just sit and listen for 30 minutes.
Yes.
As a teenager, I would say be careful because, as I mentioned, I grew up in rural Missouri in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it was just a completely different scene for food and for drinks and restaurants and all of that. And nowadays, I would just say be careful. So if you're trying out new restaurants, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. If your friends really care about you as a friend, you can always designate one of them to be the asker. If you just don't want to take that on for the day, that's completely okay. Be careful if you're consuming alcohol. There are more and more alcoholic beverages that include real peanuts. So specifically, if you have a peanut allergy, just be really careful about taking a sip out of somebody else's cup. Like, normal things that you would maybe do. You just need to be on alert. It's out there now where it was not there whenever I was going to college and I was a teenager. It's okay to say, hey, listen, for this one night, can you not drink that peanut butter thing? Can you please not? Because it's just going to put me on high alert all night and I'm trying to have fun. And for somebody to have to change their behavior for one day, they can do it. And it's not a big ask. And if they respond in any other way about any sort of like, respond in that however you feel right to. I typically respond like, hey, listen, I live with this every day, all day. Can you please do this for me just today? And that usually puts somebody in the mindset of like, oh yeah, I didn't think of it that way.
Right, absolutely. So I love that you said, just ask what it's like. What's it like to live with that?
Absolutely. And that's why I was so excited to come onto this podcast and to talk about it, because a severe food allergy is a disability. It is labeled that by law, and it feels like that. It's an emotional weight. It is a physical difference. And it's hard.
It is hard. I even forget, as your mother, the level of anxiety that would be involved in a day-to-day, let me just get to the end of the day kind of thing. I take for granted, and I think most people do. I live like this. Everybody else does too. And then you get the reminder, like when you come and visit, I'm like, oh crap, now I got to think about how long has it been since I've had cashews in the house? Why the hell do I even have cashews in the house? Stuff like that, like I said, with the dish thing, you don't think about it. Your dish rags. Have you really? Yeah, it's fascinating and also eye-opening, and it makes me go, okay, yeah, I could do better.
Totally. And I think for me, it was therapy and finding the support group that helped me change my story in my life from being so deficit-based to being just a reality of I have allergies, and that doesn't mean I have to stop doing the things I want to do. I feel like I'm on a good pathway to continuing to accept that and embrace that and view it in a more positive aspect of myself.
Yeah. I love, that's beautiful. Good for you. I
Yeah.
love you.
And you know what? Like, there are some things that I think have made me who I am because of my
Mhm.
allergies,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yes.
I mentioned, I'm a teacher, and I feel that because this is something that I have to think about all day, and I have to think about differences that I have, I'm much more aware, maybe, or maybe I have a little bit more of a keen eye towards making sure that all of my kids are feeling included in the community and having snacks available that are all like allergen free, reaching out to parents. I just think it gives me a bit more empathy with some of
Mhm.
my students
Mhm.
and a bit more of a curiosity in my life in general and wanting to know, well, why did that person act that way? Well, maybe they have a skin condition or they have an allergy or they have something that, has been weighing on them all day, or that whatever I said just triggered an emotional reaction for them. Just
Yeah.
makes me, I think, a
More
bit more curious.
compassionate. How lucky are some of the kids that will get to spend time in your classroom because you can relate to having that being excluded feeling, that you want to include and be an inclusive teacher and find a way to talk about things positively instead of like, we don't even realize we're doing it in a negative way, but you're so aware of it that those kids will come away with that and that will impact them forever. So yay.
Definitely. I mean,
Right.
I love teaching and I love my kids and making a difference. And I think hopes for the future that more people talk about what it's like to live with severe allergies so that people who don't live with that can become more aware, can grow that empathy, can make changes in their life so that it doesn't have to be always on the person with allergies to explain or to um, make changes in their lifestyle so that other people can make those small changes and make it just a bit easier and more enjoyable to navigate and build
Right.
relationships.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I'm so happy you came on and talked with me about this and kind of opened up and able to share hopefully some things that young people or even parents of children with allergies can take away from this and learn and just look at it from a different perspective. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Anytime.
Love it. All right. Well, this is a great place to wrap up. I'm going to say thank you, Kelli Burton, and thank you to everyone out there for tuning in, listening, watching. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you soon.